Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any. I'll just highlight some of the details in the case and the FBI work, and then you'll hear from the others. But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today, former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure. The men and women that are standing up here today worked tireless hours, days, months, and years. And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation. And we could not have done it without our interagency partners that are before us today. The NYPD, HSI, and teams of law enforcement officials from around the country made this day possible. It takes a team to bring this kind of justice, sweeping justice, into the halls of the United States courtrooms, where our brave United States attorney has led this prosecution. It takes courageous prosecutors to stand before you and say, we will not allow this kind of illicit activity to happen, not only at the national sporting level, but also where it hides in La Cosa Nostra. And when these two collided together, they perpetrated a fraud that is historic in terms of not just money, but the scheme and the deceit that they utilize to steal and swindle people from money, to include crypto fraud. This is an operation that showcases to you that under President Trump's administration, there is no room for any type of criminal behavior, be it on the world's largest stage or in the back rooms of tiny parlors where card games are being played. We are proud to stand here today with the men and women of the FBI and this legal team. And to the United States Attorney, I just want to thank you personally for taking the time to display the work that the media is about to hear about today in detail. As I said, it does take courageous prosecutors, but it takes a courageous United States Attorney to bring this case, because we are going to take heat for it. But we don't shy away in this administration. We don't say no. What we do is we bring the results across the finish line. We bring them to the public. We bring you accountability. And yes, they will have their day in court, and you will hear the evidence through the court system exclusively. We will not deny anyone of due process. And that's the brilliance of this system. That's the brilliance of this administration. Everyone will be held to account. So with that, I turn it over to United States Attorney Nocella. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Patel. To be clear, we're announcing today indictments in two major cases, both involving fraud. One involves sports betting, and the other involves illegal gambling, very specifically rigged poker games. The first indictment involves 6 defendants who are alleged to have participated in one of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams. The second indictment involves 31 defendants alleged to have participated in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. These defendants, which include former professional athletes, used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. The games in the New York area were backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families of La Cosa Nostra. While the cases are separate, there are 3 overlapping defendants charged in both cases: Damon Jones, Eric Ernest, and Shane Hennon. The indictments in these cases contain only allegations, and the defendants are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty in a court of law. But my message to the defendants who've been rounded up today is this: your winning streak has ended. Your luck has run out. Violating the law is a losing proposition, and you can bet on that. First, I would like to talk about United States versus Ernest, the NBA basketball gambling case. The defendants in this case are Eric Ernest, Marvez Farley, Shane Hennon, Deniro Laster, Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach, and Terry Rozier, a current NBA player. Other co-conspirators were previously charged for their roles in the scheme, including former NBA player Jontay Porter. Between December 2022 and March 2024, these defendants perpetrated a scheme to defraud by betting on inside, non-public information about NBA athletes and teams. The non-public information included when specific players would be sitting out future games, or when they would pull themselves out early for purported injuries or illnesses. They relied on corrupt individuals, including Jones and Rozier. They also misused information obtained through long-standing friendships that they had with NBA players and coaches. And in at least one instance, they got their information by threatening a current player, Porter, because of his pre-existing gambling debts. Defendants used this non-public information to place hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent bets, mostly in the form of prop bets on individual player performance. The bets were placed through online sports books and also in person at casinos. The defendants relied on a network of straw bettors to place the maximum amount of bets to increase their potential profits. Most of these bets succeeded, and the intended losses were in the millions of dollars. The defendants then laundered their illegal winnings in various ways: peer-to-peer platforms, bank wires, and simple cash exchanges. The indictment details specific examples where the defendants profited from illegal gambling and illegal betting on various NBA games about the performance of players on, among other things, the Charlotte Hornets, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Toronto Rangers. Each defendant in the NBA basketball gambling case has been charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Now, I would like to turn to the other case, United States versus Aiello, the rigged poker game case. Beginning as early as 2019, the defendants in this case orchestrated a scheme to use wireless cheating technology to run rigged poker games across the United States, including in the Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, and Manhattan. The scheme targeted victims known as, quote, fish, who were often lured to participate in these rigged games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes who were known as, quote, face cards. The so-called face cards included the defendant Chauncey Billups, who at the time of the scheme was a former NBA player and is currently the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and also Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach. What the victims, the fish, didn't know is that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam. Once the game was underway, the defendants fleeced the victims out of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars per game. The defendants used a variety of very sophisticated cheating technologies, some of which were provided by other defendants in exchange for a share of the profits from the scheme. For example, they used off-the-shelf shuffling machines that had been secretly altered in order to read the cards in the deck, predict which player at the table had the best poker hand, and relay that information to an off-site operator. The off-site operator sent the information via cell phone back to a co-conspirator at the table, and that person at the table was known as the quarterback. The quarterback then signaled secretly the information he had received from to others at the table, and together they used that information in order to win their games and to cheat the victims. Defendants used other cheating technologies such as poker chip tray analyzers, which is a poker chip tray that secretly reads cards using a hidden camera, special contact lenses or eyeglasses that could read pre-marked cards, and an X-ray table that could read cards face down on the table. What you see depicted on the screen right now is an example of the X-ray table that reveals the cards. Although they are face down on the table, they can be read because of the X-ray technology. The Mafia, specifically members and associates of the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese organized crime families, had pre-existing control over non-rigged, illegal poker games around New York City. As a result, they also became involved in the rigged poker games, helping to organize the games and taking a cut of the proceedings, and working to enforce the collection of debts. The defendants laundered their proceeds, including through cash exchanges, the use of multiple shell companies, and through cryptocurrency transfers. As part of the scheme, some of the defendants and their co-conspirators also committed acts of violence, including the gunpoint robbery of a person in order to obtain a rigged shuffling machine, and extortions that were perpetrated against victims in order to ensure that they repaid their gambling debts. Defendants who participated in the rigged poker scheme are charged with wire fraud conspiracy. Other defendants have been charged with crimes including illegal gambling, money laundering, Hobbs Act robbery, and extortions. This case demonstrates our office's unrelenting commitment to fighting the scourge of organized crime in whatever form it takes. I'd like to conclude my remarks by thanking the incredible hard work of our law enforcement partners, including the FBI, Homeland Security, the NYPD, and the Waterfront Commission. I also want to thank the dedicated prosecutors who built these two cases and who are standing to my right. Benjamin Weintraub, David Bourbon, Caitlin Farrell, Michael Gibaldi, Irisa Chen, and Sean Sherman. They had the assistance of paralegal specialists Liam McNett, John Schneider, Marlene Bosler. Also deserving of our thanks because of their outstanding investigative work on the NBA case are FBI Special Agents Russell Lantier, Dominic Mariani, Amy Giaroso, Shane Wilkins, and Supervisory Special Agent Luke Hardison. On the rigged poker game scheme, outstanding work was performed by FBI Special Agents Thomas Cribbin, Jeff Boriola, Jonathan Corona, Alexander Silverman, Amy Campanaro, and Supervisory Special Agent Michael Malahi, as well as NYPD Task Officer James McCullough, and from Homeland Security, Supervisory Special Agent Charles Freund, and from the Waterfront Commission, Detective Paul Shimborski. Finally, I want to note that the investigations in both cases are ongoing, and we encourage anyone with information about either scheme to please contact the FBI.
Joining us now, once again, CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig, a former federal prosecutor. Elie, explain to us the scope of this investigation. Just how big is it?
Well, Wolf, it's a massive case. It's a massive takedown. There's really two cases, two separate indictments here. And this goes to the heart of what the mafia does, very much not the heart of what the NBA tries to do, the opposite of what the NBA tries to do. So the bigger of the two indictments charges 31 defendants with running a fixed illegal poker ring. They ran games in various cities around the United States, and apparently they used very high technology in order to cheat. They had people who were planted there, who were working with the mafia and others in order to cheat ordinary players out of, in some instances, over $1 million. That's the case where Chauncey Billups is charged. Chauncey Billups is currently the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. He was a 17-year player in the NBA. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. That is a very big deal for the NBA itself to have a current head coach and a sort of legendary player linked up to an illegal gambling operation run by the mob. Also of note, Wolf, we heard in the announcement last hour that not only were these participants cheating certain players, but they were using threats of violence and extortion, and those are among the federal charges in order to enforce this ring. So that's the first case. Separately, there's a smaller case in terms of the number of defendants, but maybe bigger in terms of impact. This is what Kash Patel called the insider trading case, and this is the one that involves the current NBA player Terry Rozier. The allegation in that case is that Rozier and others were sharing inside confidential information about who would be playing that day, who might be injured, in order to feed that information to bettors so that they could bet on certain what we call prop bets, meaning will a certain player score more or less than 20 points, or a certain player have more or less than 8 rebounds, etc. And the most worrisome allegation, I think, from the NBA's point of view, is that this player, Terry Rozier, actually at one point in 2023 essentially tanked a game, that he took himself out of a game or faked some sort of injury or illness so that people who bet those under numbers would win those bets. That's a major problem for the integrity of the NBA's games, for the competitiveness of the league. And I should note, Wolf, it's a recurring problem. There was a separate player, Jontay Porter, who has pled guilty to a crime for doing the same thing last year. So I assure you the NBA commissioner has already voiced concern about this. We heard from the FBI that the NBA was cooperative here, but this is going to rock the league and the mafia as well.
What's the significance, Elie, of the mafia crime families allegedly being involved in these crimes?
Yeah, so you heard some terminology from the FBI officials in the prior hour. They kept referring to La Cosa Nostra. That is Italian for this thing of ours. It refers to the 5 New York City mafia families. 3 of them, the Gambinos, Genovese, and Lucchese's, are apparently involved in this case. Now, Wolf, the mafia family has long controlled and run illegal gambling operations in New York City and elsewhere. But this is a next evolution in that type of crime. First of all, they're enlisting and working with, apparently, maybe indirectly, but working with a current NBA head coach, Chauncey Billups, a very prominent person. Second of all, the evolution in technology. I mean, these devices that can secretly read cards. There was reference to they use special contact lenses and glasses that could read marked cards. I mean, none of that existed, 5-10 years ago when I was charging the mafia with running illegal gambling operations. So look, these are big money operations. They generate millions or tens of millions of dollars for these illegal organized crime enterprises, and we can see the next evolution in today's indictment.
We heard the federal authorities announce that there were 2 indictments and 34 defendants. 34 defendants. Can we assume that some of those defendants were not necessarily NBA-related stars, current or former players, but also mafia leaders?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, only a handful of the defendants appear to be NBA current or past players. There's the three who we know of. There's Chauncey Billups, there's Terry Rozier, and then there's Damon Jones, a former player. I would, according to what we just heard from DOJ and the FBI, many of the other defendants are not at all affiliated with the NBA. They are perhaps members or associates of the mafia, or just other people who were involved in these rings. That's what makes this case so remarkable. This is such a sprawling enterprise, and to see prominent members of the NBA working with, dealing with illegal gamblers, in some cases perhaps mobsters, I think that's going to send shockwaves through NBA's headquarters in Manhattan.
I assume you're absolutely right. Ellie, I want you to stand by. I want to bring in our CNN sports anchor, Coy Wire, right now. What do we know, Coy, about the players and the teams involved in this current investigation?
Well, we'll start with Chauncey Billups. He's been the Trailblazers head coach since 2021 following a legendary playing career. He was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame last year, famously led the Pistons to the 2004 title over Kobe, Shaq, and the Lakers, named Finals MVP. The team retired his jersey. After 6 years in Detroit, he went to the Nuggets, where he made a formidable duo with Carmelo Anthony and all. He was a 5-time All-Star. He retired just over a decade ago before taking up coaching in 2020, first as an assistant with the Clippers before taking the head job with Portland. As for the 31-year-old Rozier, he was the 16th overall pick in 2015 by the Celtics. He's a role player for 4 seasons there before getting an elevated role, traded to Charlotte, where he averaged more than 20 points per game 3 times. Now, Rozier has been with Miami since January of last year, and he was in uniform as the Heat played the Magic in Orlando last night, though he did not play due to a coach's decision. According to the AP, he was taken into custody in Orlando early this morning. The other former NBA player being charged, Damon Jones, left the league in 2009 after 11 seasons in the association. He was on LeBron's Cavaliers team that reached the finals in 2007. He was also, Wolf, an assistant coach on the 2016 LeBron-led Cavaliers, who won the title.
Yeah, shocking developments indeed. Coy Wire and Ellie Honig, to both of you, thank you very, very much. We'll stay on top of this story. And by the way, we've just received, just now, a statement from Rozier's attorney, Jim Trusty, that reads this. Let me put it up on the screen. We have represented Terry Rozier for over a year, a long time ago. We reached out to these prosecutors to tell them we should have an open line of communication. They characterized Terry as a subject, not a target. But at 6 a.m. this morning, they called to tell me FBI agents were trying to arrest him in a hotel. The statement goes on to say it is unfortunate that instead of allowing him to self-surrender, they opted for a photo op. They wanted the misplaced glory of embarrassing a professional athlete with a perp walk. That tells you a lot about the motivations in this case. They appear to be taking the word of a spectacularly incredible sources rather than relying on actual evidence of wrongdoing, end quote. We will, of course, continue to follow the story and bring you all the latest developments.
Let's bring in David Weinstein. He is a former state and federal prosecutor and a partner at the law firm Jones Walker. David, thank you so much for being with us. I mean, this news is huge. I do want to start with just explaining these 2 indictments to our audience, because you have one indictment essentially focusing on insider trading, this idea of manipulating bets tied to court performance. This is the one that Terry Rozier is allegedly involved in, because you ended up having sports books flagging suspicious activity. And then the other indictment actually involves the coach, Chauncey Billups, who is accused of working with mafia families in illegal poker operations. Just explain to us these 2 different indictments here.
Well, Zane, these are both, to me, come straight out of Hollywood. I mean, in the poker and gambling case, they're talking about technology that allows these games to be rigged, where the people running the games were going to win at all costs, where they use players, former players, current players, to lure unsuspecting victims in and have them wager. And again, not small amounts of money like you would think at a poker game at your kitchen table, but literally 5-figure numbers that ballooned up potentially to 6-figure numbers. And it was widespread. And then in the other indictment, it's something that we've all been looking at and probably waiting to happen once online gaming became so popular in the country. Someone was going to find a way to take advantage of it. Somebody always does. And in that instance, the FBI has now alleged that someone did. And those people alleged include former and current players who are giving insider trips, much like you would in insider trading of securities. So this is really big on both fronts, and the number of people involved is really enormous.
Yeah, it's like The Sopranos meets the NBA. I mean, you have over 40 people here, 40 defendants, including major NBA players, former players, coaches as well, and mafia associates. We heard from the FBI director calling this historic in scale and deceit. Just talk about the significance of this investigation, these charges, and what it means potentially for the NBA going forward now.
I think not only does it mean something for the NBA, but it means something for every professional and semi-professional league out there. They all were reluctant at first to jump in on online gaming and betting and wagering. They all have now embraced it. Have we seen some of this in other leagues where the same type of insider betting has been involved? If I was a gambler, I'd be leery about putting any money down. Who knows who has inside information? And again, as you mentioned, the breadth of this, it is not just a small number of people involved in the indictment. And the FBI and the Department of Justice have now alleged ties to organized crime. And that's what was involved before online gambling became legitimate. That's how you used to place a bet. It's come full circle. Many thought that it would disappear, but apparently it hasn't, at least according to these allegations.
When you think about the possible defense, I mean, obviously the defense lawyers are going to be coming up with their strategies. One of them could be, lack of knowledge, duress, possibly lack of intent. When it comes to the issue of intent, how do prosecutors go about proving intent here?
Well, you prove intent by either people's own words or by evidence that you receive from now cooperating former co-conspirators, from recorded conversations, from statements that people made either to get people to participate in this, or statements or text messages even where the insider information was being relayed. That's how they're going to prove intent. As far as duress goes, we heard allegations regarding one of the indictments that there was some violence that was alleged to get somebody to participate, violence involved in obtaining a rigged card counting machine. And so the intent aspect, again, is going to come from corroboration of cooperating witnesses, text messages, emails, bank deposits, actions that were taken on the part of the individuals involved, statements they made to people they didn't think were listening.
Yeah, to Zane's question, Roger's lawyer has insisted that this was what he called a photo op arrest and says that his client was never a target and was already cleared by the NBA. But it's obviously clear how intensive and extensive this investigation has been, and authorities say it's still ongoing as well.
All right, David Weinstein, thank you.